Every human who has ever lived has done one thing in common. Billions of people. Every emperor, every farmer, every child. Everyone you have ever loved. And not a single one of them has ever been able to tell you what it was like. Death is the one experience with no witnesses. The one trip nobody comes back from to file a report. For all of human history, the moment your brain actually shuts down has been a sealed black box. The last truly private place left. In 2016, in a hospital in Canada, that box cracked open by accident. An 87-year-old man was lying with electrodes glued to his scalp. He had epilepsy, and doctors were recording his brainwaves to find the source of his seizures. Routine. Then, in the middle of the recording, his heart stopped. And for the first time in the history of our species, a machine was watching a human brain as it died. Before that, we only had stories. People who had been pulled back from the edge, especially after cardiac arrest, had described the same strange things for as long as we have asked. A tunnel, a light, a feeling of deep peace, floating above their own body and watching the room from somewhere else. And again, they described their life replaying in front of them. Different countries, different centuries, different religions. The details changed, but the shape of the story stayed weirdly familiar. But that was all it ever was. A story told afterward. A memory from a rattled brain that had been starved of oxygen. Easy to dismiss. Easy to call a hallucination. Easy to file away as something comforting humans invented because death is too frightening to look at directly. We had no way to look inside the moment itself. Until the man with the electrodes. What the recording caught in the 30 seconds around his heart stopping was not what most people expected. It was not silence. As his heart gave out, his brain did something extraordinary. It surged. Specifically, it produced a burst of what neuroscientists call gamma waves. And gamma is not background static. Gamma is the brain wave of a mind hard at work. It appears when you concentrate, it appears when you dream, and crucially, it appears when you retrieve a memory. In the moments around death, this man's brain produced the electrical pattern of someone remembering. The neurosurgeon who helped lead the study, Dr. Ajmal Zemar, was careful about what this might mean. He did not say we had proven the afterlife. He did not say we had proven that everyone sees their life flash before their eyes, but he did say something remarkable. The dying brain may be running a final replay of important life events, the same kind of life review people have described in near-death experiences for generations. Your life, quite literally, flashing before your eyes. Recorded on a machine. For the first time. Now, one patient is not enough to prove anything by itself. This was one very old man. He had epilepsy. His brain was not a perfect blank canvas. The responsible thing would be to call it interesting, but uncertain. Except it was not the first hint. Years earlier, in 2013, a team at the University of Michigan was studying rats. When the rats' hearts were stopped, their brains did not simply fade into darkness. They fired off a sharp, organized surge of that same gamma activity. It lasted for about 30 seconds after the heart quit. Dying brains, it seemed, had a final move. Then, in 2023, the same Michigan lab did on purpose what the Canadian case had only stumbled into. They monitored 4 dying patients who were comatose as they were taken off life support. In 2 of them, as the body shut down, the brain surged with gamma activity, and not randomly. The activity concentrated in a region scientists sometimes call the hot zone, a patch of cortex tied closely to conscious experience and dreaming. So now, it was not just one accident. It was a pattern seen in animals and then seen again in humans at the exact moment we assumed the brain was simply going dark. Instead, it did the opposite, which leaves us standing in front of a genuinely unsettling question. What does it mean for a dying brain to look active? Here is where we have to be honest, because this is where the story is easy to overstate. A surge of gamma is the fingerprint of an active, remembering mind. But a fingerprint is not the person. We are reading the handwriting of the dying brain without being able to read the words. The activity is real. The timing is real. The pattern is real. But whether anyone is actually in there experiencing it, actually seeing the light, actually reliving the memories, actually feeling peace, that is something science cannot yet prove. It might be a final lucid montage. Or it might be the brain firing familiar patterns with no one home to watch. That uncertainty matters. Because the most honest version of this story is not that science has solved death. It has not. The most honest version is stranger. For thousands of years, people came back from the edge saying the same things. Peace, light, a life review, their memories opening in front of them. And for a long time, we treated those accounts as comforting stories. Now, machines are beginning to whisper that the stories may have been pointing at something physical. Something built into the organ between your ears, not proof of what it feels like, but proof that the brain does not always fail like a light switch. We used to imagine death as a clean line, alive, then off. The recordings suggest it may be more like a process, a final transition. And in that transition, the brain may do some of its most intense and organized work in the seconds after the heart has already stopped. That blurs a line medicine once treated as obvious. When exactly is a life over? When the heart stops, when the brain stops, when consciousness is gone, or when the last organized signal fades out of the dark? No one can answer that perfectly yet. But even the uncertainty changes the map. Because whatever this is, it is not an abstraction. And it is not someone else's. It is yours. It is waiting. The one experience you cannot avoid and cannot practice, the single most private moment of your life. And we have just heard its first muffled word through the wall. You will almost certainly never remember this in the moment it matters. But if those final recordings mean what they might, you may not be staring into nothing. You may be somewhere in your own memories. For 300,000 years, we were certain that dying was the lights going out. The first time we ever managed to look, the brain was not going dark, it was lighting up.